Bueno, egun ondan hori, eta eskerrik asko hau antolatzen lagundu gaitxu zuen dan hori. Bai, dekanotzari be, lagundu gaitxulako bentsate hau dana atontzen eta gelia erreserbaten, da gero, bukatu ostean be, jarri gaitu digute horre tortilla batzuk eta ateatzen garenean bentsate tripa beteta juteko etxerantz. Welcome, Tefik, Tefik etorri zaigu Kanadatik, Montrealgo unibertsitatetik, eta, gero bukaeran berari emango diogu hitza bere lanak pixkat labur bada bere ikuspegia azaldu desan. Zehaitxik gagozen hemen, badator beste norbait barruratz, azaldu duela 3-4 hilabete, animatu ginen Euskal Herriko Unibertsitateak daukan gizarte mugimenduen deialdi batera aurkezten. Igaz ezagutu genituen Euskaraz sendatu taldekoak, hemen J. Fuego zabizen ikasle talde bat, nola baitere Euskaraz ikasteko eskubide eta baliabideen alde lanean zabiltzatenok, igaz ezagutu nituen nik behintzat, eta aldi berean, Euskal Herrian Euskaraz aspalditik da ezaguna guretzako. Gizarte mugimenduan eta dagoen erakunde potenteen Euskal Herrian Euskararen sustapenean eta bizi ditugun zapalkuntzen aurrean lanean ari dena, ezta. Orduan, hitz eginda segidan nintzakin, elkartu ginen Elgoibarren, diseinatu genuen pixka proiektua, Elgoibarko kafetegi batean, eta ideia iruditu zitzaien interesgarria zela eta guk aurrera. Aurkeztu ginen da zorionez proiektua onartu digute. Diru kopurutxu bat lortu genuen baita ere Tefiken bidaia ordaintzeko. Eta bihar gainera azpeitira joango gara Euskal Herriko Unibertsitatearen udako ikastaroetan ere islari moduan edukiko dugu bera. Hizkuntza eta osasuna txirikordan. Hau eslogana Euskal Herrian Euskarazen trebeziari esker. Gu baino ontan trebeagoak badaude batzuk hortik eta irakurri nuenean gustatu zitzaidan niri eta espero zuei be gustatzea. Zer da, hemen pixkat azalduko duguna gaur. Irudikatu nahi genuen batetik unibertsitatean ikuspuntu akademiko batetik ero saiakeran ari garen irakasle eta profesional talde bat badago, atzean, izkutuan baldin bagaude ere, apurka biztaratzen. Irudikatu nahi genuen Euskal Herrian Euskaraz, zubi hori gehiago indartu, eta irudikatu nahi genuen ikasle talde bat. Eta, momentu honetan, garai bateko eutsi planeko ikasleak gogoratzen ditut, momentu honetan nik uste dut referentzia saretela, eta naiz eta asko ez izan, proiektu honen helburua baita ere da, bai farmazian, psikologian, ikasle taldea ezagutzea eta Euskaraz sendatu taldea ere ezagutzea. Azalpen bat emango testu inguru txiki bat, nik 3-4 berbatan azalduko dizuet, eta gero hitza emango diet, bai intzari eta mireni, beraien ikuspegi emateko. Testu inguruan, aitortu behar dizuet, 2015 inguruan, 14 bukaeran, Aitor Montes ezagutu nuen. Garai hartan, hango erainkin hartan, sorte eduki nuen Euskararen arloko errektore ordea izatea EHUn. Izateko sorte eduki nuen, baiezkoa eman nuen esnekin non sartzen nintzen, eta lehenengo egunean bertan, atean bertan eukin dituen, eutsi planeko Medikuntzako ikasleak. Eta bulegoan bildu ginen, eta garai hartan Iñaki Goirizelaia zegoen, eta esan zidan, Jona, saiatu zaitez, zeniz hasita zegoen erretoretza taldea, da sartu nintzen, batek uko egin zuen, da hor sartu nintzen, da hasi zaitez, alegindu zaitez Medikuntzakoa ikasleei, ber ze arazo dagoen, eta ea hortik zeo zer egin genezaken. Eta, nire lan egunaren 60 batero, erretore horretan, igual gehiago, dedikatu genion fakultate honi. Eta hortik aukera eukin nuen, bai Felix Zubia, bai Aitor Montez, batez ere Aitor ezagutzeko, bilera batera etorri zan bera, eta, han aipatu zidan, da zergatik ez dugu zerbait bultzatzen, eta adibidez ude ikastaro bat antolatu. Eta, hola izan zen, ude ikastaro bat antolatu genuen, 2015ko ude ikastaroa da hori, aurten ja 7. edizioa egingo dugu, beti hizkuntza eta osasuna eta gairen bat, arlo hortan. Eta, modu xume batean eta ilusio handiarekin, zerbaitetarako baldin banago ni unibertsitatean da, uste dut, karrera profesional ohikoa egitea alde batera uzten ari naiz, eta benetan gai hauei heltzen, apurka-apurka. Ze, lanpostu egonkor bat daukat, nire beharrak bete ditut, baina falta zaigu hau. Hau personalki ere, bada motivazio personal bat, hemen zaudeten gehienok bezala, eta proiektu hontan sartu ginen, proiektu ibilbide hontan, jakin gabe non sartzen ginen. Baita ere, bazegoen pertsona bat Osakidetzan Euskaraz zerbitzu burua zena, eta asko lagundu zigun, Xabier Arauzo. Badago hor nazioarteko aldizkari batean argitaratu genuen, the bus paradigm shift edo deitzen den pizkat osasun arloan inguruan artikulu interesgarri bat badago argitaratuta 3 artean argitaratu genuen. Aitor da honen ideologo nagusia, horregatik beti aitortzen dut bere papera, ezta? Ze bera gabe ez ginen sartuko hontan. Berak jartzen du ideia, berak zeukan ezagutza, bera zegoen Kanadako estandarren mailan aholkulari bezala, berari da, neurri handi batean, profesionalki ere, arima eta gogoa jartzen, ezta? Eta, hor hasi ginen, ondoren Medikuntza Erizaintza Fakultatean, baita ere izaskun garai, adibidez hemen daukagu, eta askoz irakasle gehiagok ere lagundu ziguten, bereziki, gradu ondoko bat egiteraino ere heldu gara, berezko titulu bat eduki dugu 3 urtetan zehar, EHUrekin kolaborazioan, eta saiatu izan gara baita ere fakultatean hemengo ikasleak gaianen inguruan gradu bukaerako lanak egiten. Hor dauzkazue, Bidane Petralanda, edo Iñaki Santa Marina, famili medikua eta anestesiologoa gaur egun gurutzetan Iñaki. Garai hartan, hauek ziren, Iñaki batez ere eutsi planeko bozera mailetako bat. Orduan, neurri batean, oso posgarria da, ondorengo gazteak ere hor zabiltzatela, ez da, ikustea. Eta, oinarri honen barruan dago kokatuta baita ere proiektu xume hau. Xumea izan da ere heldu nahi dugu gizartera. Eta hortarako Euskal Herrian Euskaraz ezinbestekoa da. Nolabaiteko, esango genuke, lotura gobernamental gabeko erakunde bat, herrian lanketa potentea egiten ari dena, zubi hortan ikusten dugun erakunde interesgarrien Euskal Herrian, eta horrek ematen dio aukera paregabe bat, lotura gutxiagorekin aurrera egiteko. Orduan, testu inguru hortan kokatuz, guk nahi genuena proiektu honekin ekarri da, hizkuntza eta osasun arreta lotzen ditugunean, pazienteak hautatzen duen hizkuntza hortan arreta jasotzea hizkuntza eskubide bezala irudikatzen dugu. Beti gure aldarria ero gure borroka mugatzen da askotan hizkuntza eskubidera. Baina azkenengo 7 urte hauetan, uda ikastaroetan egin dugun bide hontan, ikusi dugun elementu importante bat da akademiatik landu beharko genukena eta gizartera helarazi, ez dela hizkuntza eskubideen kontu bat bakarrik, ez da ere hizkuntza eskakizunen kontu bat bakarrik, hori oso importantea da, defendatzea, baina haratago joan behar gara. Hau azken batean da, segurtasun klinikoaren, irisgarritasunaren eta osasun arretaren kalitatearen elementu oinarrizkoena da, pazienteak hautatzen duen hizkuntzan osasun arreta integrala osorik ematea. Eta hori da bultzatu nahi duguna. Zergatik, munduko osasunaren erakundean kalitateko estandarretan zehazten da. Eta hori jasota dago. Orduan, guazen, benetan, kalitatearen estandarrak esaten digutena betetzen gure herrian ere. Eta hortarako egin behar da lanketa potente bat. Orduan, proiektu hontan hortarantz jo nahi dugu. Kalitatezko arretarekin lotzen hasi eta herritarrak ere hortan kontzientziatzen hasi. hizkuntza eskubideaz gain, atzean badago segurtasun klinikoaren elementu bat ere. Naiz eta denok elebidun osoak izan hemen, da naiz eta denok gaztelaniaz ulertu, Euskara arreta hizkuntza bezala hautatzen duen pazienteak zerbaitengatik hautatzen du. Eta hor ikusiko dugu badagoela inplikazio zuzen bat arretaren kalitatearekin. Orduan bidea egin nahi dugu, unibertsitatea, profesionalak, herritarrak, eta etorkizunean osasun profesionalak izango zaretenok, behintzat fakultatetik esperientzia honekin atera, eta gu zuen esanetara, behintzat laguntzeko prest zentzu hortan. Helburu orokorren barruan aipatu dudana dago, irakurri dezakezue hor, kalitatearekin lotzea, pazientearen hizkuntzan arreta ematea, irisgarritasunarekin, eta beste elementu askorekin. Eta gero bereziki, ikasleak zaudete, helburu oso importante bat da guretzat, gainontzeko fakultateetan ere osasun ikasketak egiten ari diren ikasleak Euskaraz sendatu taldea ezagutu dezatela, da posible bada, igual, zebat potoloagoa antolatzen joan, eta gero herritarren gana heldu, eta bereziki aprobetxatu genuen, herrialde kurduaren egoera ekartzeko baita ere gurera, askoz larriagoa den egoera bat da, segurazki, beraien begietatik gu igual bestera bat ere ikusten gaituzte, hobeto gaudela, baina aldi berean ere ondo dago ikustea, zapalkuntza are, igual opresio handiagoa jasaten duen kurduen herriak, Turkian bertan, tefikek gero azalduko digu, eta orduan ekarri nahi genuen aprobetxatuz, helburu ontara. Gero badaude helburu konkretu batzuk, nahiko genuke behar bada, baten bat animatzen bada, gradu bukaerako lanen bat aurten ere, gaianen inguruan osasun arloko graduren batean egitea, eta hor kokatzen dugu apurtxo bat, bai? Adoretu, saretu eta lan egin honen inguruan. Bale, intzaren txanda. Eskerrik asko.
Jonek ondo azaldu duen bezala, beregandik iritsi zitzaigun proiektu hontan Euskal Herrian Euskarazi parte hartzeko proposamena. Eta, nik sarreratxo labur bat ingo izuet, pixkat, ezagutzen espalin badezue, Euskal Herrian Euskaraz zer dan edo zertan oinarritzen dan. Euskal Herrian Euskaraz sortu zen 1979 urtean, aurten beteko egia 45 urte. Eta, azkenian, herri mugimenduko eragile bat izan da, helburu duena, gaur egun ere, Euskal Herri Euskalduna eraikitzia. Betidanik eduki izan du desobedientziarako eta errebeldia puntu hori. Eta urte luzetan zehar, egitasmo desberdinak izan dira. Hasi manifestazioak, kanpaina konkretuak, pegatak, pankartak jarri, lehengo urtean esaterako euskaltzale independentiston topaketak egin zian, eta badana euskara oinarri hartuta eta aldarri. Pixkat gaur egun nola gauden ulertzeko pandemia garaian hasi zuten, ni oraindik ez neon bertan sartuta, barne prozesu bat astindu izena jarri zitzaiona. Eta, barne prozesu hori abiatu zen, testu inguruak ala behartuta edo, errealitatea aldatu egin zen, Euskal Herrian Euskarazen aldaketa batzuk iteko beharra sumatzen zen, eta beraz, hortik abiatu zen prozesua. Egia da, garai hartan, Euskal Herrian Euskaraz baita ere oso baju zehola, indar gutxikin, eta beraz, basan apustu bat aurrera jarraitu alizateko. Prozesu hortan, hiru izan zian aldaketa nabarmenenak, bat oinarri ideologikoa berritu zen, hor ikusmira izeneko dokumento bat sortu zen, eta aldaketa esanguratsuena izan zen, eragile independentista modura aitortu zula bere burua Euskal Herrian Euskarazek. Ordura arte inoiz esplizituki ala etzan aitortu. Gero bigarrena izan zen antolaketa eredua aldatu zala, garaiak aldatu dira, militantzia eredua ere aldatu inda, eta beraz ikuste zen, garai batean sustatzen zen, herri bakoitzean Euskal Herrian Euskarazeko talde bat sortu eta herri mailako funtzionamenduakin aritzia. Ikusten zen hori gero eta zailagoa zala, herritan taldeak sortziak gero eta gehiago kostatzen zen, orduan eman nahi izan zitzaion egitura, komunitate egitura bat, sare egitura bat. Zerbait malguagoa. Eta gaur egun, etzaio EHUko egiten herri sortzen dian talde horiei, eta berez hori ere sustatze dugu, baina nazio mailako lantaldeak dauzkau. Orduan, bakoitzak bere herrian espaldin badauka talde bat, EHUko talde bat espadago, nazio mailako talde horietan egin dezakete beraien ekarpena. Eta nazio lantalde horiek epemuga batean sortu eta bukatzen dira. Momentu jakin batean, proiektu jakin baterako sortu eta hori amaitzean bukatzen da. Eta beraz, komunitateko kide bezala nazio lantalde horietan parte hartu daiteke. Eta gero, etorkizuneko zereginak berrikusi zian. 5 zeregin ezarri genituen, eta pixkat gaur egungo batzordekideok eta komunitateko kideok helburu daukaguna da zeregin horiei heltzea eta zeregin horietan aurrera egitea. Eta, pixkat azalduz Euskal Herrian Euskarazen nola gauden, hau da, lehen aipatu du Jonek, proiektu honetan oinarria edo da galdetegi bat. Galdetegi horrek, lortze duen sartzia, gaur bai. Galdetegi horren helburua da jasotzia herritar guztiei zabaldutako galdetegi bada. Beraz, hortan ere laguntza eskatuko dizuegu, zabalkunde horretan laguntzeko. Eta helburua da jasotzea esperientzi desberdinak hizkuntzak bere biziko garrantzia izan duena edo aldeko edo kontrako sortu duena gatazka bat edo izan dena zerbait positiboa. Esperientzia desberdinak osasun arretari dagokionez. Beraz, galdetegiak, ez da kargatzen, ditu 3 zati. Lehenengoak datu pertsonalak jasotzea da, bigarrengoa esperientzia horiek jasotzea da, positiboak zein negatiboak, eta azkenekoa da profesionalei zuzendutakoa. Eta profesionalei zuzendutakoan beraiek beraien lan arloan izandako esperientziak jasotzea baita ere da. Non hizkuntzak garrantzia izan duen onerako edo txarrerako. Eta hauxe da pixka bat, hori hasieran aipatutakoa. Hizkuntzari dagozkion galdera batzuk ere jarri ditugu, jakiteko euskararekiko ezagutza maila, atxikimendua, eta gero pixkat hauek dira galderak. Inoiz egon altzara zure medikuarekin erdara hutsean hitz egin behar izategatik mugatuta sentituzaren egoeraren bat. Eta, helburua da ahalik eta zehatzena izatea erantzuten duena, baita ere ondoren emaitzak jaso eta ahalik eta ondoen aztertzeko. Eta hori da pixka bat galdetegia, asmoa da galdetegiko emaitzekin abenduan Euskararen egunaren bueltan plazaratzea eta holako ondorio batzuk ateratzea. Beraz, horixe. Eta mireni emango jo hitza.
Pixkat azalduko dizuet zertan datzan euskaraz txendatu eta testingurutan eta sortu zen. Eta, sortu gendun taldea lehengo irailean, justo bain beteko urte bat, bigarren mailako medikuntzako ikasle batzuk sortu genuen, pixkat ja unibertsitatea giroan finkatuta eta ikusita gure graduan nahiko arazo izango genitula euskaraz ikasteko. Nahiko ezaguna den arazo bat da, sarri ikusi izan da saretan, adibidez askotan izaten da graduazio ekitalditan mintzagai, Eta azken batean, medikuntzan sartu ginenean, eta azkenean osasungintzako gradu guztietan ikusten den bezala, nahiko arazo egoten dira euskera eta osasungintzaren arteko lotura horrekin. Eta pixkat kezkatuta erabaki genuen nolabait gure posiziotik algenun bezala aurre itia. Orduan hemen zenbait albiste eta, adibidez, nola borroka bat egontzen ere aurretikan, eutxi plana azaldu da adibidez Jonek. Eta, pixkat egoera ikusita erabaki genuen nolabaiteko espazio hori sortzea, ez? Orduan, jarri genizkion zenbait helburu taldeari, pixkat aurrera egiteko. Alde batetik kontzientzia izan ere ikusi genuen gradura sartzean, egia medikuntzaren kasuan desberdina dela, hizkuntza hautaketa bat egiten da matrikulazioan, matrikulara iritsi aurretik, lehenik eta behin aukeratu behar da euskeraz edo gazteleraz ikasi nahi duzun, bi sarbide desberdin direlako. Ta konturatu ginen, naiz eta euskeraz ikasi, jende asko ez zegoela benetan gradu osoa euskeraz ikasteko prest baino ez zegoela nolabaiteko asmo hori, ez zegoela kontzientziazio hori. Beraz, erabaki genuen pixkat ere ikasleon artean nolabait euskera mintzagai bihurtzea eta eztabaidatzea eta ikustea ea nontzegon bakoitzaren ikuspuntua. Baita ere saretzea azkenean unibertsitatean pertsona berriak ezagutzen dira eta ez genekin batzutan behar bada gure lagunek etzekaten interesgai bezala euskera eta eraz nahi genuen sortu pixkat espazio bat non esan bezala hori euskara landuko genuen eta gure egunerokotasunean zegoen euskalduntze hori landuko zen. Eta nola ez, aurrean genituen erronkei aurre egitea zen gure helburu nagusia. Alde batetik graduak euskeratzea, gaur egun ez delako errealitate bat, eta bestetik osasungintzako gradu bukaeran normalean OPE bat egoten da, azterketa bat gradu ondoko hizkuntzan jarraitzeko, eta horiek ez dago euskeraz egiteko aukerarik. Eta hau aspalditik datorren arazo bat da, eta beraz, pixkat bi helburu horiek ikusita, lehenik eta behin noski graduak euskaratzea, eta gero gradu ondoko hezkuntza hori ere euskaratzea eutxita, erabaki genuen taldea sortzea. Pixkat ikusita, azaltzearen zer egin genuen lehen urtean, zegia da, uste genuen pixkat talde bat sortzea izango zela oso erreixa eta oso ondo pasako genula, baina gero azkenean topatu genuneko burokrazia genekala aurretik, eta ez genekala pixkat nundik eutxi. Orduan, lehenik eta behin egin genuen izan zen ikerketa proiektu bat, egia da, karreran sartzerakoan lehenengo aurkezpen horretan ematen zaizkizun datuak dira ehuneko batzuk, eta esaten dizute, kaixo ongi etorri medikuntzara, edo fisioterapera, edo dena delakoa, hauek izango dira, euskeraz izango dituzen klaseak, eta etortzen da ehuneko bat, zaten dela diagrama bat, eta esaten dizute, ehuneko 85 Donostiko ospitalean, euskeraz izango duzue. Eta pixkat guk ikusi nahi genuen zen, eta ehuneko 15 horrekin ze gertatzen da, zez genekan identifikatuta zintzen benetan arazoa. Orduan nahi genuen zen ikusi zeintzuk ziren benetan gazteleraz izango ziren atalak, jo dezagun kirurgia ikasgaian, kirurgia digestiboa izango da erderaz. Orduan pixkat identifikatzean un egongo zen gabezi hori, gero aurre egiterakoan edo nolabait plantilla aldaketa bat egin behar baldin bada, jakiteko guk ere nun dauden gabeziak eta nun egon behar diren aldaketak. Gero noski, honekin nahiko denbora ibili ginen, azken batean ikasleak eta ezakagu behar bada hemen dauden errekurtsorik, egon ginean pixkat zoratuta ikasleak bilatzen, 6. mailako ezakitze ospitaleko ikasle bat, eta galdetu gogoratzen dezulen urtean zein zen gazteleraz, zein mintegi zen gazteleraz pixkat ibili ginen zoratuta, eta genezkan errekurtsokin nahiko denbora ibili genuen proiektu honekin, baina gero ere bai, esan bezala, helburu bat bazan euskera erdigunean izango zen espazio bat sortzea, eta horrek batzutan bai bereziki gure adintartean aisia ere badaka helburu, eta horregatik aprobetxatuta korrika zetorrela, martxoan egin genuen uste Gabonak aurretik kamiseta lehiaketa bat, eta gero kamiseta horiek saldu genitun, eta horrela erosial izan genuen kilometro erdi bat, nahiko politia izan zen, ze lekukoa gurutze eta ospitaleko langilei eman genien, eta nahiko simbolikoa izan zen, eta oso aukera politia izan zen, pixkat denak batzeko, eta euskararen inguruan, oraindik ere divertigarria den zerbait egiteko. Eta hemen dakagu Leioa ez, euskaraz apunte nahikorik etzegola. Eta gero, hemen ez da azaltzen, baina bideo bat ere egin genuen, azken batean gure helburua ere bazan pixkat hementzegon problematika fakultatetik ateratzea, egia da ikasleek beti dakite osea ezingo duguela euskaraz ikasi, baina gero askotan gertatzen da herrira itzuli eta herriko lagunekin komentatu eta beraiek ez dakate ideirik ez. Orduan egin genuna zan pixkat ironia erabiliz paper aldatu, eta egin genuen bideo bat non gaztelerazko ikasleek jasotzen zuten irakasle bat, non etzekan C bat, gaztelerazko C bataren akreditaziorik, ez zela inoiz gertatuko azken batean, herri honetan, baina pixkat hori nahi genuen enfasi bat jarri pixkat zintzen arazoa eta pixkat hori sare sozialetan zabaldu eta horrela beste gainontzeko herritarrek ere ikus zezaten zertzen gure egunerokotasuna. Eta, pixkat, Jonek esan duna gurera ekarriz, egia da, hemen gure taldearen jarduna gehien bat gure euskaraz ikasteko eskubidean behar bada enfokatzen dugu, baina garrantzitsua ere ikustea, azken batean mediku bat ez da mediku bat izango bere hezkuntza gabe, eta errei elebidun batean bizigea, eta horrek azkenean suposatzen duna da, hizkuntza bakoitzari espazio desberdin bat ematen diogula, ez? Eta horrek azken batean zer suposatzen du? Nik igual dakaten hiztegi informala euskeraz, ez da, esan dezagun gazteleraz dakaten bezain trebea. Eta pazientea gure gana datorrenean, eta sintomatika adibidez azaldu behar dunean, edo dena delakoa, ez dakigu gazteleraz edo, hori, jo dezagun euskeraz nik ez dakidala, gazteleraz dakan trebetasun hori behar bada ez da izango transmititzeko gai, eta gero horrek ezinbesteko eragina daka bere tratamenduan, eta dena delakoa. Beraz, uste dugu hezkuntza azkenean denaren oinarria da, eta baita hizkuntzarena ere, eta hori da pixka bat gure proiektua eta nola egiten dugun aurrera.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. I'm so happy to be here. When I landed to the Bilbao airport yesterday, I felt really close to this country because I saw the mountains and the green, the forests. So I always love mountains as a person who have lived my whole life in mountains. So I already feel very close to this country, and knowing that the Basque country has similarities, let's say a lot of differences, but similarities too with the Kurdish people. So I actually prepared this presentation for tomorrow for the summer course. I don't know if you're attending that too. So I don't want to repeat everything. I will pass some slides, and I will first start with myself. I am Taufik. I'm a medical doctor and a public health specialist. So I did my, I'm a Kurdish, I was born in a Kurdish family and lived my whole life, let's say, until high school in Kurdistan. And then I did my medical school and public health residency in Istanbul. Maybe you don't know much about Kurdish people and what Kurdistan is. Probably the newer generations, I don't know, maybe you don't even hear a lot about Kurdish people. Maybe you have heard about Kurdish people during the ISIS war, like this last decade. So I want to pass some of my slides. These are just some slides for tomorrow, so that you are encouraged to come tomorrow as well. But I want to start with who are Kurdish people and where do they live. So these are the estimated population of Kurdish people. Kurdish people are one of the main native nations of the Middle East. So we don't know the exact numbers because they don't count us, because they basically deny our existence. So there is no real census that says, are you Kurdish or not, how many Kurds live here? But it is one of the biggest nations in the world without an independent country. And we want an independent country. It's not like we don't have, but it's okay. Because we have been denied. I won't go back to let's say medieval times or even prehistoria, whatever. Kurdish people is one of the native nations of the Middle East. They didn't immigrate from anywhere. So in the last century, let's say, what happened. So after the First World War, when the Ottoman Empire was demolished. Kurdistan was a part of the Ottoman Empire, and we had our own semi-autonomous or independent principalities. Like I think in Basque Country too, there were tribes, like more autonomous regions maybe before. So it was like that during Ottoman Empire. We were enjoying some degree of independence. It wasn't like nationalist countries were not so dominant in the world, so we were okay with everything, and we were living our own culture, language, life in education or in daily life everywhere. So after the Ottoman Empire was demolished, you know, many countries were gained their independence, like Albania, Bulgaria, you know, these countries. And for the Kurdish people, according to the Sèvres Treaty, there was a planned Kurdistan. Maybe it wasn't. Okay. So it wasn't like this total region, but it was a smaller, but still it was an independent country, was going to be accepted. Then the modern Turkey's founder, Mustafa Kemal, they decided with English and French, because English and French were here, like these were colonized by English and French. So they decided that that treaty will be thrown in the garbage and there will be no country for Kurdish people. So they decided to divide it into 4 countries: Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. And one of the sociologists, Ismail Bashikci, he says Kurdistan is not even a colony. Like it says the status of Kurdistan is below a colony, because when you have a colony, you recognize the country, you recognize the people, and you say, I colonize here, or this country colonizes this. But here is a total denial of this people. And it's now around 40-50 million people. It's not, you know, it's probably, if it was a country, it would be maybe among the 20 biggest countries in the world, probably. Anyways, so when it was divided, our destiny changed totally, because now we have disconnections. It's like a body you divide, and now it will move differently. It will do weird things. You know, it's not a full body that is acting in coordination. So now the status of Kurds in every country, in each of these countries, is different. So let's start with Iraq. So we have a big history with Iraqi government's oppression and, you know, Saddam Hussein's times, when he chemically bombed Kurdish people, when he buried alive, let's say, around 180,000 Kurdish people. So we had a constant conflict with Saddam, and in 1995 we built a government here. Somehow, you know, after all of this, you achieve something. So in Iraqi Kurdistan, now we have a autonomous region, autonomous government. We have our own language. It's like, you can imagine like the Basque country, but I would say the level of autonomy is even higher. Like the total language, culture, everything is under the dominance of Kurdistan. In Syria now, in this last decade, after the war with ISIS and you know, all the conflict in Syria, now we have a region here controlled by the Kurdish people, but not recognized, not nationally or internationally. So it is a region under the control of Kurdish people, but because the Syrian issue is not solved yet, so it's running by Kurdish people, but we don't know what's happening next. And in Turkey, in this last century, we have been in conflict constantly. So there have been a lot of genocides against Kurdish people, a lot of other organizations, political and armed conflicts with Turkish governments. We have we can say an equivalent of ETA. It's now weak, but like it has always been a war. And my whole life, to be honest, I have always lived in war. Like war for a Kurdish people is just a part of life. So in Turkey, we have no language rights, no culture-based rights, no nationality-based rights. It's just they consider you as Turkish. So you're Kurdish, and that's the biggest part of Kurdistan. Now it's more than 18, it's maybe 25 million people. So here, no language or nation-based rights, and it's all oppression. And in Iran is very similar too. So in 1946, we declared independence here, but it lived only 1 year. You know, with the support of Russia and the retreat, when you retreat the support, it dissolves quickly. So it lived 1 year and they executed the president. So now in Iran too, there is no ethnicity-based rights. It's just they consider everybody as Persian. So when we go, okay, so this, I just want you to see this Turkish, because now I will talk more about the Turkish part because I come from this side. So the situation in each part is different, but just look at this, and this southeast triangle is the Kurdistan. So I will just show you some maps and I won't say anything. I won't really go through what is this, but you will see the difference. So this is the average household size, you see. This is the unemployment rate. This is the GDP per capita. You see like the difference. This is number of cars per 1,000 population. This is number of students per teacher. This is number of physicians per population, 1,000 population. This is socioeconomic development index. You see the color. Like always, you see this triangle different. This is COVID-19 vaccination rate at some point. It doesn't matter, but you see the difference. But why? So we in public health, we talk about social determinants of health, like, you know, general socioeconomic, cultural conditions, living, working conditions, all of these things, all in combination, they determine this situation, but especially distribution of power, because Kurdish people have no power, because it's a total denial of Kurdish people. Like, there is no special treatment. They don't say, okay, these are Kurdish people and let's provide services based on their needs. So it's mostly about power and resources. So as like a small part of this situation, we made a research about language and access to healthcare, because here language of, like, official language is Turkish. Kurdish is not accepted in any official capacities like education, healthcare, anything. So we decided to research how this situation affects people's access to healthcare, Kurdish people's access to healthcare. So this is mostly about language, but then I will talk about oppression too. So why Kurdish is so important? This is a famous, I don't know drawn by whom, but Kurdi, Kurdistan. So Kurdi means Kurdish language. So basically Kurdish language is the main difference that we have from our neighbors. So in terms of religion, Kurds or Turks or Arabs, or like those people live there, are majority Muslims. So there are no big differences, but our main distinction is our language. Of course, there is cultural, you know, clothing, everything is a bit different too, but especially language is very obvious, and it is not a language similar to the other language. It's a totally different language, like Basque and Spanish or other like these language. It's a totally different. So in this last century, because Turkey didn't accept existence of Kurdish people, with the policies of invisibilization, inferiorization, and criminalization, they tried to just remove Kurdish from people and Turkify them. Like, this is the main policy of Turkish language, so Turkish country. So Turkish has become the main language in the whole country. Just to show you the level of oppression. In 1991, we finally got some political representation in the parliament. I think it was around 20 parliament members. So Leyla Zana is one of the brave Kurdish nationalist politicians. When she read her oath in the Turkish government, at the end she said, I read this oath for the sake of Kurdish and Turkish people in Kurdish language. Like she did that in Kurdish language, and just that. Like she spoke Turkish, she read everything as was written in the text, but she just made one sentence in Kurdish, and immediately the army went around the parliament. Look, we are talking about parliament. Like these people normally have immunity. They cannot be arrested because you are representing people. So immediately with these 4 politicians, she was arrested at the parliament. And she was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And with these 4 politicians, they rest in prison, and she was released in, I think, 2000. She didn't like do 15 years, but she stayed in prison, I think, more than 10 years. And then she was released. Anyways, this was 1991, and now I'm going to talk about 2024, 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, now we have some Kurdish mayors in Kurdish cities. So one of the mayors decided to write here. This is the Turkish önce yaya, means pedestrians first, and here they wrote it in Kurdish too. Pedestrians first, like it's just a very basic traffic sign. So immediately some people came and removed the writing here, and they wrote, Turkey is Turkish and it will remain Turkish. And it wasn't only some people. So the government came and removed all these signs from roads. So they didn't leave. Like, it's not just, some people, some fascist or extremist people come and do this, and the government came, removed all this. It was just a traffic sign, just to let you know what is the level of language oppression. And that is why we always have been advocating for language rights, and because language is us. Like, if we protect language, then we protect our identity. So that's why we all, for example, W, X, and Q, or W, H, K in Kurdish, these letters are not accepted in Turkey because they are Kurdish. So, for example, my name is normally written like this, but they write it like this because W not accepted, Q not accepted. So that's why my name is written like this. So when we come back to health and language, so there is very, very little research, but one of the research in 2013, shows that those whose mother tongue is Turkish and non-Turkish, you maybe also see here, like, why Turkish, non-Turkish? Because they don't want to say Kurdish. Because the non-Turkish means 90% of these non-Turkish are Kurdish, because mainly Turks and Kurds live there. Like the other, let's say, some Arabs or other minority nations is very small, but it's always like this, Turkish, non-Turkish. Anyways, but this is one of the research done about the accessibility of, like the impact of language and health. So this is at least one antenatal care, like this. So those who speak Turkish and non-Turkish, there is a difference. I don't know, like they look, the difference doesn't look very huge, but I showed you all the maps, and you saw like how the regions differ from each other. Anyways, but this showed that those whose mother tongue is Turkish have better access to healthcare. So we wanted to check, like, how is this happening? Why those who have Turkish, those speak Turkish, have better access to healthcare? So what is the percentage of Kurds who do not speak Turkish? We don't know that because there is no research. But let's keep some, let's say, proxy measures. Here is the education level. So these are illiterate and uneducated but literate. So that means around 25% of Kurds have very little education, and the education is in Turkish. And if you don't have education, you probably speak only Kurdish. So around 25% of Kurdish people do not speak Turkish. And this is around 3-4 million people. So as a theoretical background, we used Levesque's Access to Healthcare, and I will just pass this. We interviewed 12 people, 6 women, 6 men, to deeply understand what's happening with their access to healthcare. And these are traditional Kurdish clothes, in case you just want to know, but these are not the people we interviewed. So I will pass this to, these are interviewee profiles. So we basically made a research based on healthcare needs, perceptions of needs and desire for care. Like when you are from home to go to a hospital and come back and go to a hospital again. So this whole process, healthcare seeking, reaching, utilization, consequences, and again, perceptions of needs, like as a cycle, how this is happening with people who do not speak Turkish. So we did a thematic analysis, and as a result, we saw like Kurdish people have low health literacy. They are excluded from health awareness and promotion activities because there is no Kurdish activities. Limited source of health information. All of these things, like they cannot make an appointment, go to a doctor, they cannot speak with their healthcare provider. We don't have translation services, so you take someone with you to translate, to do the interpretation. And as a consequence, we see dissatisfaction, inability to pursue health rights, low adherence to treatments anyway. So I will pass this too, because these are the things that we know in almost every country. If you don't speak language, you have these problems. So of course we have these problems. I'm not saying this is not important, but we have other problems too. We realized in our interviews there is a problem of internalized oppression. So that means people have internalized their inferiority, and they have negative stereotypes, self-doubt, low self-esteem, and low self-worth. So we we realize that this is not only about communication. So language is more than communication. It's about your identity. And when you have lower class identity, let's say, then it also shows your social social class. Sorry, can I get my water? So we decided we will go search for oppression. How does it affect access to healthcare? So internalized oppression is one of the least researched aspects of oppression, because people say if we if we focus on internalized oppression, we might mean that there is a weakness within the community. So there is always a focus on resilience, resistance, these people are resilient and so on. Of course, there are resilience factors too, but we cannot deny internalized oppression. And we should see internalized oppression as a as a consequence of oppressive structures. So we used a perspective on narrated, non-narrated, and disnarrated. This is mainly what is said during interviews, what is not said or avoided, and what is said despite not being asked, despite not being related with the main story. So the non-narrated, we see the non-narrated people mainly use themselves, like they access to healthcare, but they are the one who are non-narrated. Because here, when we see then what kind of, like, what is the self-portrait of these people. So most of the people said, I have never been to a doctor on my own. And these are like 50, 60-year-old people. Like your whole life, you have never been to a doctor on your own. There's always someone else. I compare it to, like, you take a selfie, but there's always someone else in your picture. Like, you're not alone, never. You're never alone. So, but why is this happening? Because when we see there is this self-portrait is devalued, is disabled, is dehumanized, and is disempowered. So why devalued? Let's say one of the interviewers said, why would I bother an ambulance? Why would an ambulance come for me? Like when we talked about emergency services, when you, in an emergency case, what you do, like none of them talked about an ambulance. And I asked, like, why are you not talking about ambulance? And he said, why would an ambulance come for me? Because he thinks he's not worth an ambulance. So this is very interesting. One of the interviewers compared it to an actually physical disability. He said, when it's your language, it's like eating on your own, but when it's not your language, it's like being fed with a spoon by someone else. So this is the self-portrait they are telling us. And dehumanized, if one of the interviews, if I could speak Turkish, I would visit the doctor every month, but I go like an animal. I can't speak, I can't read and write. So this is self-image. And disempowered. He said, I wish I could speak Turkish, then you would see. There was an accident, and the father goes to the hospital with the police, and they say, like, this is a health right-based issue. He said, I wish I could speak Turkish, then I would see who is innocent, who is not, but because I don't speak Turkish, I go and I don't say anything, and they do whatever they want. So here, why I made this red, because here they say, this is also one of the disnarration, I wish I could speak Turkish. They didn't say, I wish the service was in my language. They mostly use this type of expressions. I wish I could speak Turkish. They never said, I wish the services were in my language, because it was internalized. Like, you internalize that Kurdish is not a language you get health services in. It's Turkish, and I have a deficiency. I should know. I am not, like, I don't fit this system. Not that system is not providing me what I need. So, and when we see the relationship between the doctor and patient. So with a Turkish doctor, they would have fear to ask questions. They were shameful, they were shy, and they were obedient. Like, no matter what the doctor said, they would just say, okay, okay, okay. And whether they do or not, they would never negotiate their treatments. Like, some of them said, I went to the doctor, I knew the red pill he gave me wasn't good, but I couldn't tell him. Like, it's not only language and communication, but you just feel like powerless. And silence. These were the main motives of the patient-provider relationship. But there were some Kurdish doctors. So when they had this, their Kurdish doctor, they were very comfortable. They were very sociable, chatty, and they were saying like jokes and everything. Like this is the same. In fact, it's the same patient. With a Turkish doctor, they were shameful, like this very powerless person, but immediately becomes very powerful and confident person with a Kurdish doctor. But we have now another problem, because some of the Kurdish doctors don't speak Kurdish with their patients. These are some of the things that interviewees told us. So why do Kurdish doctors don't speak Kurdish? Because they also see it as a matter of power. Because if you speak Turkish, then you have powerless patient, then you manage very well. But if you speak Kurdish, then you have a confident patient, and you don't want a confident patient who negotiates with you, who who is more powerful. So they see it as a challenge to their own power. And because Kurdish is an inferiorized, sometimes criminalized language, you don't speak because you also have the anxiety or the concern that if you speak Turkish in a clinic, then someone may go to the police and say, hey, the doctor is talking Kurdish with their patients. So it might also be an issue. So there are a lot of things I think should be researched, which is not a part of this research because we didn't talk with doctors. We talked with patients and based on what they told us. But I think we need to talk with the doctors why they don't speak Kurdish with their patients. And the main narrated one was family, because they had this was the only source they would rely on. So they mainly never talked about their the government services, even if they existed, like ambulance. They would always use their family for interpretation, companion, health information, financial support, anything. Like family was everything. And this was becoming very problematic when I show you the map, like the number of physicians per person, per population in this region is low. So people are very often, they are referred to bigger cities to get better treatment. So when they go to other cities, for example, here one of the interviews at Jizr is ours, like it's the city. So it's our language. I can talk with someone, I can see someone who I know of, like these, but when they send me to another city, I go to the parks and I cry because I have no one. Look, their main source is social support, which is family, and when they refer, let's say there is no good health facilities here, and most of the cases are sent to Madrid, let's say. So when you go to Madrid, then you lose your all social support too, and you feel even more powerless when in fact you go to get a better health care. So the main disnarrated. So what was said when it was not even asked? So when we were asking them what can be done to improve your access to healthcare, they would say, may God end this fire. Like this is a very idiomatic expression that means may God end this conflict. Like they're talking about the political conflict and peace. If only these bad things no longer existed. But we didn't ask them this. Like we didn't ask them what's the political situation, like what do you think about political situation. But we asked about how your healthcare can be improved. They said, I wish the authorities would show a bit mercy and extinguish this fire. Fire means conflict here. Like it's a very idiomatic expression that I know because I know the language and the idioms. So this showed us basically this main picture. So there is a devalued, disabled, dehumanized, disempowered self-portrait. They have only family as a resource to access healthcare. They do not basically exist by themselves. They always need a companion. And as a consequence, they have dissatisfaction, delayed healthcare, and poor adherence to treatment. And all of this also show us, this narrated is very important. Actually, they tell us the main political conflict. Like this is the main context. If this didn't exist, then actually none of these would exist. Because this is what this narrated tell us, like political conflict. Because why did they tell us? We didn't ask them. But when we asked them, like, what's the problem? They showed us this political conflict, like peace and conflict. So in general, we have a lot of, we can talk about a lot of recommendations, healthcare services in mother tongue, or or making Kurdish the official language, professional interpretation services, increasing the number of Kurdish-speaking healthcare professionals, improving the quality of local healthcare so they don't be referred to other cities. But I think we need this first because it's not recognized. Like we need recognition of this problem first. And this is like implications for qualitative research. I think we should go beyond spoken words. Like this is my second paper from this research. It's under review now. So we should consider these questions when we talk with people from oppressed communities. Why is this element frequently mentioned? Why is this not mentioned or avoided? Because you expect something, like you expect an ambulance in an emergency situation, but when they constantly do not mention it, then you have to question. Why is this element mentioned despite not being asked? And why is this element mentioned in this particular way? Because they said, I wish I could speak Turkish. They didn't say, I wish the services were provided in my language. And I think we need an insider perspective, because if this research was not done by me, I would probably not be able to find this narrated, let's say, conflict, if this was all linked to the fire and conflict. So an insider perspective is needed to understand the socio-political context to interpret in a good way. So I thank you, Eskerik Asko, and thanks.